Hello guys, the firmware just released for overclocking the KS0 Pro, so I kind of wanted to go over step by step on how to prepare your KS0 for overclocking, how to install the software, and then how to actually tune it. So, I will go over the parts that you're going to need to do this, the installation of it, and then like I said, from there, installing the software. So, first things first, we got to fix the cooling on this thing. So from the factory, you've probably already heard these things are absolutely awful. The thermal paste, when I opened mine originally, was super crusty. It was already falling off the ASIC chips, and when I plugged it in and checked the temperatures on it, it was running at 70 degrees on stock settings. So would it have been fine? Probably, but any kind of overclock, even mild onto it, even something that doesn't touch the voltage, it would have started overheating immediately. So a big thing we need to do is fix some of this thermal issues on this. So replacing out the thermal paste, which we got right here, and then also cooling the Mosfets. So when we start pushing more voltage into this thing, they get this up into the 300 gigahash range. Those things are going to heat up very, very quickly. If you look at the board temperatures after we do all the cooling mods with the stock voltage, it drops significantly. But if you don't have the airflow going through this thing, which I'll show later, your board temperatures will shoot up and it will actually cause it to shut down. So it might mine at a certain speed for only a couple of minutes and immediately shut down. So first things first, let's get this apart. So there's a couple of Phillips head screws actually on these outer plates. Mine are already removed. You're going to actually leave these off. So as you can see right here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. There'll be Phillips heads. Just remove these. Honestly, mine were a little bit stuck. The quality control on them is not very good, and they're very much of some kind of Chinese pot metal. So be very careful and make sure you size your screwdriver correctly. So it'll be 4 here, and this plate will come off, and then there will be actually 4 on the bottom. As you can see, I reinstalled my plates, and it was chewing up the threads on the inside of them. So take these off. You're going to need as much airflow through here as possible. As you can see, there's not a bunch of cooling in there. So you take those guys off first and just leave them off. You won't reinstall them. Next step is going to be removing all these Phillips heads. There will be a white sticker right here that says, "Do not remove, you'll avoid warranty." I don't know if you guys have seen anyone trying to send in the hash boards for the KS1, 2, or 3. You ain't getting it fixed. So avoid your warranty. If you don't want to, don't overclock it, because that's also going to avoid your warranty. We're going to remove these guys right here. This one out. Here. And this thing is super dumb easy to take apart. You don't even have to remove the screws off the fans or anything like that. There's not even really a screw order on this. There's not really torque to spec. Honestly, just go until it stops. Maybe a little bit more. It's not really pressing any components on this side in particular. You don't need to unscrew the fans. They can say attached. So if you have all the screws out of the sides, this one's a little sticky. You have all the screws out of the sides and off the bottom, it should just lift. You might pull a little bit, it is a pretty tight fit. As you can see, we have our fan connectors right here. Just go ahead, give them a little pull, there's no clip on them, they're just little 4-pin PWM fans. I'm gonna put this off to the side. So we have our board. So as you can see, mine's already modified. Ooh, looks like I broke the pad right here. So as you can see, this is the backside of our hashboard. I've already glued these on right here. So these are these heat sinks right here. They're a little 9mm by 9mm by, I think these are 4 or 5. Find the shortest ones you can possible, because they do need to fit under this plate. As you can see, there's a little bit of an edge on them and the fans. So you just need to stay under there. What we're cooling here is the backside Mosfets. These tend to get really, really hot once it goes under any kind of load. If you don't do this, you will destroy your miner. So our next step is going to be removing the actual mainboard and hashboard itself. So all the ASIC chiplets are on the back side. So what we're going to do, I got to switch my bits real quick, is take off all these spring-loaded guys right here. So we have one in the upper little bit right here. I tend to kind of go crisscross and not remove them all the way. We're going to kind of go like halfway on this one, halfway on that one. Start with these. Kind of move our way, kind of switching the opposite sides in, just so that there's even pressure on the board. Is it necessary? I mean, why take the risk? I wouldn't like to see this destroyed, so let's take these out now. Nice and loose now. They're all the same. I've checked and made sure, and they're all the same length. They're all the same screws. It just makes manufacturing easier, so why make it hard? So I do recommend, if you're doing these, do not put these on until after you've changed out the thermal paste. They take like 24 hours to cure. I know the glue says 5 minutes. Why risk it? You can also mix a little bit of thermal paste into it. I don't think it's necessary, but if it makes you feel better, you can. So what we're going to do now is just pull out the hashboard, make sure all of our screws are out, and it should just lift off. So one of the things I see on a lot of the blower designs is people are attaching them just straight to the side here. I don't know if you can see, but our actual ASIC chiplets connect onto this metal frame. This is not just decorative. I know this should be pretty obvious, but this is not just decorative. This is the cooling solution for the ASIC chipsets. That's why with the brand, the one that I print, that I also sell, I make sure that it actually goes around this whole surround and cools it on all sides, because one, it's just too much back pressure on the fans if you're just trying to push it through the center. Two, it's also not getting the same amount of cooling to the actual ASIC chips. So now that we have this off to the side, what I'll do real quick is clean this guy off. Awesome. So as you can see right here, here's our actual ASIC chiplets. That's actually what does your mining right here. And then one of the crazy things is, so you see all these little tabs over here. These are just heat spreaders. So rather than doing like a whole solution where they put like copper plates or anything like that, they went with a lot cheaper solution. What they do is they put these close enough that it kind of transfers the heat. And if you look on the other side of the board, bam, there's those thermal pads connect onto the other side of the ASIC monitor. So one of the mods that I've seen people do, if they can't get enough hash out of this, if they're still having board heat problems, is they'll actually go ahead and put heat sinks like these guys across here. Once the board's kind of reassembled a little bit, they'll put a square one like here and here, maybe in between and over here. And it actually has shown that it helps with the board temperature, which helps with the overclocks on it. So if yours is having a little bit of issues with, maybe achieving a higher overclock, if you can't get up to, 360 to, maybe even higher than that, if you're stuck at like 300 and below, even when you're pushing a lot of voltage, try putting some heat sinks here and seeing if that helps a lot. Like I said, the quality control on this is not very good, in all honesty. So some boards, and you also have the silicon ladder on top of that, quality control is not always there, so you're losing a little bit there, and some people are getting a little bit better if there's a better job done on it. Other people, their chips just can't keep up, and they need a little bit more voltage, and some people are lucky and have gone all the way up to 300 gigahash on no voltage change. So anyways, what we're going to do is go ahead and clean off these little ASIC chiplets here. Like I said, I'm just going to use this. Do it at your own risk if you're going to use a towel. Using a little Q-tip would be great. Just clean off the actual chiplets themselves. Alrighty, so we're mostly cleaned off there. Honestly, I could do a little bit better of a job, but I mean, looks like it should be good enough for me. And then this stuff's all non-conductive. What you're gonna go ahead and do is throw in your thermal paste of choice. A little bit on each one of the chiplets. Honestly, I kind of do everything by the vice method. It's always good to put a little bit more on there. Stuff's not super expensive or anything like that. And obviously, under coverage is going to be a lot worse than over coverage. Like I said, this stuff is non-conductive, so shouldn't be any issue. And it's significantly better than the original. I'll go ahead and put up some temperature differences. I believe I took some screenshots early on before I did the original thermal paste mod. Like I said, probably way too much for these chiplets, but it should definitely help cut down on the heat. Oh, now it's just reverse order. So let's go ahead and grab our housing. In all honesty, I don't think there's a direction on this. I'm pretty sure it's even both ways. I've double checked and triple checked, and I seriously cannot find any noticeable differences between one side and the other. So I just say, if you forget what side, don't freak out. Just go ahead and install it. So as you can see, bam, drop your board back on there like that. Make sure the screw holes are lined up, and start going again. Honestly, I'd start in the center and let it get threaded. Try to get them all threaded first. Taking that one down. Alrighty, there we go. Now we got our hashboard installed again. And so what you're going to do from here is you're actually going to go ahead and use some thermal epoxy. Again, this is just something that I grabbed off of Amazon. I think it was like $4 or something like that. And same with these guys from Alpha Cool. These things I think were like $5 or $6 or $7 for the set. And I have a bunch of them left over, so I'll find somewhere else to put them. And you're going to go ahead and put them on the Mosfets. They'll be right here. You can see these leading into it. These are the Mosfets. These are actually what drops down the voltage and stuff like that, so that's what causes the heat. These things get super hot super quick, and that's why we need to cool these off. Alright, so go ahead and use your thermal glue and attach them. Like you said, some people say that you get a little bit better results mixing a little bit of thermal paste into it. I'm not a big fan of just mixing chemicals together. If it works and it still hardens, I mean, and there's any benefit, sure, go ahead. In all honesty, I don't think there's any difference with just using the thermal glue. I think it might be just in our head. And it's not like you can check this out and rip off the thermal glue once you've placed these on here. You risk injuring the chipset. So. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and reattach this guy on here. Alrighty, so next thing you're definitely going to need in order to get ready for overclocking is one of these bad boys. So this one's just an Amazon special that I've had for quite a while. When my MSI Laptops one stopped working, I switched it out to this one. It's a 20 volt, I believe it is a 230 watt 20 volt PSU. So it has the same size barrel connector on it, plugs right in. 20 volts is kind of the optimal place for these laptop chargers for this. I know some people have done some research and it's still kind of pending. Not a lot of people have tried it out. These things seem to like lower voltages from there, like down to the 18 volt. Someone's running one at 16 volt, but that's with a variable power supply, and you saw a noticeable drop in temperature. 12 volt, it can't handle it. It's too much. It's too little voltage for the miner. It will not work properly if you start overclocking. Your best bet is honestly to run one of these 20 volt ones. Buy it from a reputable brand. I know I'm bad. I bought one from Amazon, but MSI makes these for all their laptops, and they're in the 180 to 230 watt range. Get one of those ones. It also doesn't come with a stupid connector right here where they connected the barrel plug onto it. This was causing me issues when I did my shroud. The new shroud that I'm designing will account for using one of these big barrel plugs. There's also a pretty easy solution. So you're definitely going to need one of these. Next thing you're going to need, so wall meter. You want to make sure that you're not going to overdo it on your power supply. If you're planning on not upgrading your power supply and just running stock voltages or maybe a little bit of a overvolt, please use one of these and monitor it. Make sure you're not pushing your power supply to the limit. Make sure you're not overdoing it, because if that thing pops, there's a good chance you're going to kill this. So please use a wall watt meter for this. And the final thing, a cooling solution. So this one's for a singular KS0, KS0 Pro. This is something that I print and I actually have it up on my Etsy too. Honestly, you can find STL files for all kinds of these online. I'll show a couple different ones. I highly recommend any of these shroud type ones that slip over the miner, like so, like that. Reason being is the flow going through this is super restrictive. So you're not going to see a ton of temperature change unless you put something on the backside as well, which I do recommend doing anyways, just have an extraction fan. But like I showed you when I took it apart, your ASIC chips are touching onto this side. They're actually dumping their heat into the outer casing of this. So it is beneficial to blow air over this as well. Might as well do it with a one-stop solution. So the holes right here are cut out to run your PSU cables through it. Also Ethernet jacks. I believe these are a little too small to run Ethernet through. And then again, you can let it just blow out the back like this. This seems to work fine for at least me, but I live in a little bit colder environment. It is a lot colder outside right now. We're sitting at about, I think I saw in the garage 19C, or around like 60 degrees Fahrenheit in the garage. It drops down to like the 50s right now. So it's not really super necessary at the moment. I know as soon as spring, summertime comes around, you are going to need an extraction fan on this. I'm also not running the right fan on here. It's just for demonstration purposes. Get a 120 millimeter axial fan or a delta fan. You need as much flow as possible to push through this, because it is super restrictive trying to push it through here. You'll notice if you try to use just a regular computer fan, it will not cool it. There are a couple solutions that I saw where and I designed one where you can take 2 computer case fans like Noctua's and blow through it, but the footprint of it becomes huge because now you need 2 on this side, 2 on that side, you have the shrouds on it, and all that. It just makes it huge and bulky. Just putting the axial fan on the front is more than enough to cool it. Putting one on the back, it's just adding more to your performance there. Another solution that I have right now that I actually have up on my shop that I'm working on is actually putting 2 of these together. So you actually have your screw holes right here. There will be a little plate that goes in between so that you can put the 2 fan ends together. So it holds them still, and it will actually be a shroud that slides over both, and will take a 4-inch inline fan. Come back. Hello? A 4-inch axial fan. It actually has more CFM than even just a singular or a dual axial fan. The 4-inch inline fan is more than enough to cool 2 of these. Put another shroud on the back, another 4-inch shroud on the back, and use that as an extractor, and there will be a middle piece for this. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and assemble this real quick. Alrighty, so already went ahead and plugged in my KS0 Pro. I'm going to go ahead and go get the firmware now. So the firmware, I'll go ahead and link it below, is on GitHub under one of the community members. It's actually PB Farmer over on the Kaspa Discord. Created this firmware. He's also done it for all the other versions of the iceriver miners, the KS0, KS1, 2, 3, M, and L. I do know on the M and L versions, currently there is no voltage control. If you're curious about that or you have one of those. Working on that. Anyways, beyond the point. So just going over the basics of it. So the way that he gets paid out for this, unlike some other people, is that it does take out a 1% fee while your miner is going. So if you have any issues with your ISPs or your routers, detecting when the hardware switches from one to another, make sure that's disabled. He has heard of issues like that. I personally haven't run into it yet, but it can happen. So 1% of the fees get actually transferred over to the Kaspa official development team. So it's not funding directly him, it's actually funding the whole Kaspa team. So big W there. If it doesn't connect to any of the hero miner pools, which is what it does, it will turn off the OC. So make sure that that is fixed, or else your overclock might just randomly drop sometime. So what you'll go ahead and do is go over to releases over here. Go ahead and click on it. At the time this video comes out, there should be a version for the KS0 Pro. You'll go ahead and download it. Like I said, I got a pre-release firmware, so there are some weird things that are showing up on it right now, but they will be fixed in the future. So what you're going to end up doing is logging into your KS0. If you don't know how to do that, go into your router and look for the MAC address that's printed on the side of it. I believe that there's a sticker that comes in the factory. If you can't find it there, or it doesn't come with a sticker or anything like that, I'm not too sure. I vaguely remember mine having one. Just go on your router or use the iceriver tool and find it on your network. And then all you're going to do is enter the IP address into your web browser. Your original login is going to be admin all lowercase and then 1 through 8 as the password. Once you get into it, make sure everything's running. But go ahead and set your pools. So mine's just on the default pools right now. And then we're going to go to firmware upgrade. So when we go to firmware upgrade, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And we're going to hit update. Alrighty, so now the software has loaded. We're going to go ahead and hit OK on that one. There's just a software disclaimer, yada yada yada, governing law, accepting terms, overclocking risks. Make sure you read this. Hit accept. Alrighty, now you can see we're greeted by iceriver plus PB Farmer. So, we're gonna go over here to miner settings, and you'll see there will be, in miner settings. This is the warning: overclocks can be dangerous. All that stuff. So you're gonna hit I understand. So here is our configuration stuff, our fan modes. And then on our home, once this starts hashing, you'll actually see all this will start popping up. It will show the chip clocks, it will show the voltages, the hashboard temperatures and stuff like that. These are currently reversed right now. They won't be for the released firmware, so ignore that the exhaust temp is lower than the intake. These don't have Peltier plates in them. It's not getting any colder from passing air through it. So, overclocking it. A good rule of thumb is to start off at the base voltage and increase your clock. Usually, I will start off with about 5 to 10%. Hit save, and then let it run. So there, just so you know, on the display here, we have a 5-minute hash, a 30-minute hash, and a 2-hour hash. The 5-minute hash is honestly worthless. It can kind of give you an idea where it's going to be, but because of how the pool works and how blocks aren't always the same time and jobs aren't always coming in, there'll be a fluctuation back and forth. So you could see upwards of I think it's a 15 to 20% swing in your hash rate. 30-minute is honestly still really, really bad. It's an okay average. It doesn't give you the best kind of idea of how your miner's doing. In all honesty, 2 hours is the best indicator of if your hash rate is stable. Another thing you can do is look at the pool side, make sure it's kind of close. But like I said, your best bet is going to be a long-term waiting 2 hours and seeing if it stays stable there. If you do that, you know that your clock is good, you know that your setup's good, and that it's going to be consistently at that hour. So what we're going to go ahead and do is go over to miner settings again. I'm going to throw in a quick overclock. Like I said, I tend to start off with the voltage offset at 0, just because we're not producing any extra heat then. We're just running at the stock power, and we're just getting a little bit of extra boost out of it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I know this does work. We're going to do a 110 megahertz overclock. As you can see, it's a 20% increase from the base clock. We're going to go ahead and hit save. Operation succeeded. And there is a ramp up time. So it goes up 25 megahertz every 30 seconds. So it does take a couple of minutes for it to ramp in. Something else to keep in mind when you're looking at your gigahash over the 2-hour time span, make sure that it is 20% faster than stock as well. You don't want to be increasing, if the clock increases 20%, but we're only seeing a 15% gain in hash rate over 2 hours, it means that it's not pushing hard, it doesn't have enough voltage, it's not running the way it should. So bump up the voltage a little bit. And so what I'll do is do 5, 10 to maybe at the most 20% increases in megahertz per time. And honestly, you could go even lower than that, even go 25. When you start kind of nearing that bleeding edge, so like for example on mine, I can't do a 200 megahertz overclock on stock voltages. I'll bring it down, maybe 25, see where it's at. If it's still not stable, 25 again. If it's still not stable, bring it down again. The nice part is it's very easy to tell when something's not stable because the chipsets will actually immediately crash down, back down to stock settings, and then try to ramp up again. So if you see your chipsets are dropping off, or you're seeing the voltage go crazy, or anything like that, where you can see the jump is pretty high, it's a pretty good indicator that the ASIC is not stable. What I will say is that what I have seen, at least in my personal miner, is that at 825 megahertz, so pretty good increase of 275 megahertz increase after the base clock at 4.4 millivolts or 440 millivolts. It does hold stable. Like I said, do not just throw that overclock in there. The best option for you to do is to just sit here. I know it's tedious, but it's honestly the best for the longevity of your miner, is to bump up the core offset, keep going until it's unstable, check your temperatures, check your voltage. I'd say honestly, my upper limit on voltage, we don't know where the upper limit is on these, but based off of other ones and the other chipsets and other miners, you're looking at about 440 millivolts, I believe is like the upper limit of what you should be running on these. I've seen 450, allegedly 500 is the max out for it, but without, sniffing the Mosfets or anything like that, or checking them to see what it looks like, what they're actually rated for, what their amperage rating is, it's better to play safe. So I wouldn't recommend really pushing the base voltage significantly higher. Keep it so that it sits around under load about 440 millivolts. So currently right now, it should actually start showing us over here. As you can see, our chip temps are going up, and here's that ramping. So you can see base clock 550, ramped up to 575, now it's ramping up to 600. We can see that our millivolts is dropping down. This is called V-droop. This is normal. Once the chipsets go under load, they'll actually start pulling down the voltage just from working. And we can see we're actually getting accepted shares. So, another thing I do recommend is these are on anyways. You might as well turn them all the way up to 100%. So usually I just do that and hit save. Yeah, so that is overclocking your KS0 Pro. I don't have it up here right now, but something I do recommend doing is going and checking on your power meter to make sure you're not getting anywhere near the upper limit of your power supply. Make sure you're not pulling too much wattage, and then also it's nice to have it there because then you can calculate out your actual wattage versus hash rate. You can find that good middle ground of getting the most hash for your watt. Obviously everything in crypto is about, and at least in how I do things, is all about efficiency, not maximum power and maximum hash rate. You want to make sure it's efficient, and also not putting out a ton of heat. That's another thing they really monitor when overclocking and really pay attention to, is your exhaust temperatures, and then also your board temperatures. We're not sure, again, we're not super sure where the upper limits are on the board temp. What we have noticed is the reason why a lot of miners are crashing out when overclocking, at least when it came to other people's overclocks, was mostly temperature on the Mosfets. That's why we put those heat sinks on there. That's why we went with an axial fan or a 4-inch inline fan, and we're blowing a ton of air over it. They run really hot, and if those get too hot, they'll either one, fail outright, or crash. That is why we pay attention to our board temperature. Make sure you're keeping it honestly below 80. 80 is allegedly the upper limit of where it's okay. There's not a ton of research into it. I'd say 80 is probably even a little bit far for me, especially if you're moving this much air over the top of it. Go ahead and I'd say call it 60, 65 degrees C. Probably a really good safe middle ground for everything. Make sure everything stays cold, everything runs efficiently. So I'd say 65 is probably my upper limit for board or exhaust temperature output. Obviously right now we're at 2741, so that's more than enough. As you can see, we're still ramping. We're at 600 megahertz right now. You'll see we'll keep ramping, and our hash rate is slowly going up here. So we'll come and check on it in probably about an hour and see where it's at. 2 hours is, like I said, the best. If at 2 hours we're still doing great, then honestly, keep bumping it up.